This is Neville Gallimore from the Dallas Cowboys, and I want to give a major shout out to Mike Tag. Keep bringing the hype to the Cowboys Nation. We love and appreciate it. Now, can you dig it? Let's get it.
What's up, Cowboys Nation?
What is up? Welcome to another edition of Tag Nation. Your boy Mike Tag. Of course, we got Kelly K9. It's Thursday night. We got a lot of stuff going on. NFL honors. We're going to be getting into the Super Bowl. We got Stephone Paige. I'm going to have to hit him up on the cell phone and get him in here quickly. So we're going to start quick. But Kelly, before I jump off and let you kind of handle business for a minute, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man. Just ready to get this Super Bowl going and hopefully see the Eagles get smacked around by the Kansas City Chiefs.
We can only hope. And that's why, and just so people know, I reached out to some Eagles because I'm fair, what they say, fair and balanced. I wanted to get the opinions of the former Eagle players and the Chiefs, but the Eagles refused. Once they saw it was a Cowboys cave, it was going to be Mike Tag and Kelly K9. Maybe they saw us on Twitter. They wanted no part of it. They backed out like the cowards they are, and they're going to get the beat down that they deserve, hopefully on Super Bowl Sunday. So
that's right.
But hey, I'm gonna jump off. So Kelly, you run the ship. You hold the fort down. Let me get Stephone on the horn, and we'll get this thing rolling.
All right. Well, Cowboys Nation, it's Super Bowl week. It's a big week, obviously, for Cowboys fans. This is kind of the scenario that nobody really wanted to have happen. It's the Eagles playing in the Super Bowl, but hey, it is what it is. It's going to be a good game. Some say that the Eagles are lucky. Some say that they have one of the easiest schedules. They have the easiest NFL regular schedule. They have the easiest playoff route to get there. But the bottom line is they're there, and unfortunately we're not. So I'm sure, I feel like 95% of Cowboys Nation is holding the fort down, rooting against the Eagles and rooting for the Chiefs. I feel like for some reason there's a few of the Cowboys Nation that's out there that might be rooting for the Eagles. I've heard this whole thing about the NFC East, that it looks good for us, and I'm just not down with that under any circumstance. So I'm definitely rooting for the Chiefs here. Patrick Mahomes. I got the Texas Tech ties, as many know. But I'm just looking for a good game. But in the end, I'm kind of wanting a blowout and maybe be able to pay more attention to the commercials than the actual game itself. But we'll see how that plays out. So. Been a lot of news this week, a lot of things going into the Super Bowl, but storylines anyway, I should say. A lot of different things out there that we're going to delve into later on tonight. I don't want to get too far into anything without my boy Mike Tag here. We got some good things. We got the draft to look forward to. I don't know how many of you have ever been to an NFL draft. I myself have never personally been to the NFL draft, but it's in Kansas City this year. It's only a 2.5, 3 hour drive from me. I'm going to be headed to the draft. I'm looking forward to it. It's in Kansas City. It's going to be it should be fun. I've heard from a lot of people that the NFL draft is an experience that if you get a chance to take part in, you should. So looking forward to that, as well as, seeing if the Cowboys can get some good players added to this roster and see if we can continue to build and hopefully next year be in the place that the Chiefs are right now. So.
You ready? Are you ready, Kelly?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
We got Mr. Stephone Paige of the Kansas City Chiefs, former wide receiver. He's coming into the cave. We're going to talk a little bit about his great career and also maybe get his opinion on this Kansas City Super Bowl against the Eagles. He knows that we're rooting for the Chiefs. We're Chief fans this week. So, Mr. Stephone Paige, how are you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be able to chat a little bit with you and to talk about the big weekend this weekend here in Arizona.
No, awesome. Oh, I'm a big fan. I'm Mike Tag. I was actually showing my co-host Kelly K9. I have your record breaker card, 1985. You signed it for me as a kid. It's still in my box. I brought it out to show him,
What?
so he knows that I'm not playing. I'm a fan of yours and a fan of football.
Wow.
So so
All right.
so I do
Oh, that's
appreciate
cool.
the years.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Get
Yeah,
the
so
history behind it, and looking forward to talking tonight about some great things that about to happen this weekend.
Yeah.
yes, Stephone, just to touch on that, is, you know, I saw that when I was looking up some things about you and looking at your career through the NFL, obviously as a wide receiver. When you have a game like that, I was surprised that record was broke. It was broke about 4 years later. It seems like a record that would have stood a lot longer than that. It's pretty impressive what you did during that game. Is that one of those games where you're just completely locked in? Was the offensive coordinator, was that game catered around you, or was it just one of those things where you were catching everything that was getting thrown your way and the quarterback was locked in on you?
Yeah, it was one of those games where you say, you know what, I don't think that can go wrong. I feel like you probably could have stuck a hand up, the ball probably was stuck to your hand. It was one of those days to where you go like, you know what, this is special, and you don't really know it until you get at the halftime and you kind of say, Henry Marshall walks up and say, hey, you know, you just broke the club record. What's the club record? I wasn't even keeping track. He said, you had 269, and that was halftime. I was like, what?
Wow.
He said, hey, just go for the record. So it was like, it was something that was a dream, but it was something that was destined to happen. And I was the one that was going to make it happen.
Yeah. And I tell you what's amazing with it is it's 8 catches. I mean, it was only, you know, 8 catches. He had an 84-yard touchdown, 56-yard touchdown. I don't know how much you follow the Cowboys. It gave me shades of Randy Moss, what he did to us on Thanksgiving Day. It was similar, but you doubled that up. So you took it a step further.
Yes. You know, and you look at it and you go like, man, I mean, and that was only 8 balls, but the guys that actually end up breaking my record, they caught a whole bunch more balls.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And actually, Flipper got an extra quarter. So, you know, you can kind of, you know, with Calvin's, I said, okay, Calvin, you caught more balls, but with Flipper, he got a whole nother quarter. So we're going to put an asterisk by his. And, you know, I say, if you want to really look at it, I put the work in quick. Mine came real quick because I got big amounts of yards quick when I had less attempts.
Yeah.
And obviously, the game was beginning. They were throwing the ball a lot more than we threw the ball. So it had to happen. Somebody, and I'm surprised. Here it is in 2023 that it hadn't been broken again because it's a pass heavy league.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you were in a run heavy one, so I just imagine what you'd be doing in this league where you can't get jammed and these defensive backs can't touch you. You'd be having a field day.
and you give me this kid named Patrick Mahomes. Oh, that'll help a little bit too.
Well, that's something that we definitely want to talk about. One thing that was interesting, you know, Kansas City had a rough, you know, your early years were pretty rough, and then with the team, you get Marty Schottenheimer, you know, there, and I was looking at his coaching staff, and you're talking about Bill Cowher, Bruce Arians, and Tony Dungy on that coaching staff. That was amazing.
Yes, we had a I must say we had a nice staff that Marty put together. And I tell you what, this staff was, I mean, the culture changed once Marty came in and he did what he did. He surrounded us with, and we had Carl Peterson come in as our new GM and he changed some things around. And I tell you what, Lamar Hunt said he was ready to just change the culture. And he did that when he brought in Marty.
Yeah. And who did you guys hate the most?
Now you know I'm gonna say that. Now you know I'm gonna say the Raiders, right?
Hey, oh yeah.
All right.
You know the Raiders. You know, if anything, we got to make sure that those Raiders are handled, and we made sure we took care of the Raiders. So we didn't have a good relationship, but I tell you what, Raider Week, it was all about we taking down the Raiders, and it didn't matter where or when, at their place or back at our house, whatever's gonna happen. We're gonna make sure that they wasn't gonna come to the Chiefs Stadium, and they wasn't gonna. And then when we went to, actually at that time, they were the LA Raiders, and we go down to the Coliseum, and we took care of business there. So the Raiders knew that when the Chiefs were going to come in, it was going to be a tough battle. And we knew when the Raiders came in, it's going to be a tough battle. But we had confidence that we had that thing in their heads that we cannot beat these guys no matter what we do. With Marcus Allen, Bo Jackson, they doubled up everything they tried to do. They just couldn't get it done. So I think Al Davis probably said he probably was trying to figure out a way that he could probably beat us, but he couldn't figure it out either.
No, you guys, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And talking about, that season, 11-5, you get to the playoffs. I think you guys lost a heartbreaker to Miami. I was growing up in South Florida, so I think it was in Miami. It was like 17-16 or something like that.
Yes, I mean, I tell you what, you talking about getting close. We got that one. The next week we got Buffalo for the championship game. See how close it is. That's why I say it's in this league, it's so tough to win, and you got to win now because you don't know when you're going to get back. And I tell you what, man, we had these guys down, and Dan Marino, they had a great one. So I'm not going to say, but they had a great guy named Dan Marino that he got the ball back, and he was able to drive down the field, and they ended up kicking a whip. They kicked the field goal, and they beat us and sent us backing. That was a game that we had all the momentum. We were running, and the play action was working. Steve DeBerg was on, and I tell you what, we didn't play 60 minutes. It wasn't enough because we still had time on the clock, which it was 3 minutes or whatever Dan needed to work with. He drove them down the field and got them in the field position, and we weren't able to recover after that. So, you know what, that was a heartbreaker. And after that, we never got closer than that, but we always was consistent when Marty came in. We would always get in the playoffs. And we didn't go to first round. We at least got to the second round. And if we struggled, it was after that second round. So, you know what? Like I said, NFL is tough to win games and to put streaks together. Teams that do that and they do it at the right time, they get rewarded in the postseason. And just like the Chiefs and the Eagles are doing right now, they're rewarded because they were able to sustain and put together win streaks when other teams weren't able to do it. And this made the difference, especially when you get to those championship games. You're trying to shoot for home field advantage, be that one seed. If you can hold that one seed, you got a chance. And the Chiefs have actually been able to do that for a pat. It's crazy. It's crazy. But here we are again talking about the Chiefs in the Super Bowl again.
Yep, no doubt.
Yeah, so speaking of great quarterbacks, guys like Dan Marino, I mean, you guys got one heck of a quarterback. I had the privilege of watching him play. I was a Texas Tech season ticket holder for many years, and I watched Patrick Mahomes for Texas Tech. I knew right away that he was something special. I mean, there was this play in spring training, and he just kind of flick of the wrist from about the 35-yard line and got it to the other end zone. And I'm just sitting here going, how did he do that? I mean, the guy is amazing. And it's just, when you watch him play, he's one of those guys that I feel like every time you're going to be in this game. I mean, what can you say about the kind of quarterback Patrick Mahomes is and what he's done for that Chiefs organization?
What he did right now, he solidified that. He said, don't worry about your quarterback position. It's solidified for the next 10 to 15 years. Let's just make sure we build it. We got a line built around and protect me. If you can protect me, I'm going to produce for you. And I tell you what, he is definitely guys that bought in. He's a leader, and guys like playing with him, and he's exciting because you don't know what's about to happen. And defenses, they cannot stop covering because as soon as they think they got it covered, he springs out something. Maybe it's a crazy sidewinder he throws, or maybe he breaks and just runs. So he is, I'm going to tell you what, he's special, just like you said earlier when you saw him at Texas Tech. He has really got an arsenal of things that he can do. He's got the whole package as far as in the quarterback position. He can run, he can scramble, he can move around, he can create plays. That's what makes him special. When you got a guy like that, you better play 60 minutes because I talked about that thing with Dan Marino. And I talked about this thing with John Elway. I didn't talk about John Elway. Yeah. He was always a thorn on our side always because you can never get enough points with John Elway because it's the last time he hits the ball, that last possession, he can come back and beat you or do something to make the game close again. So I tell you what, I know they are really excited to have a guy like Patrick Mahomes because, you know, they always feel like they're in every ball game, and it makes the defense say, all we got to do is keep it close. If we can keep it close, we got a guy that can finish. He's a finisher.
Yeah, and I think what's amazing, even one of our in our chat, he lost Tyreek Hill. I mean, he's got kind of, he doesn't have all the, he's got Kelsey, of course, but he's got new receivers, and he hasn't skipped a beat. And I just think it says so much about him as a quarterback. But looking at it with the Eagles, so you're seeing this matchup. How do you feel? The Kansas City offense is going to match up against that defense of Philadelphia, because that's what they're, that's what they're hanging their hat on, is that defense.
You know what? I'm gonna put it the same way. And I think what we need to do is do what we're doing. Is we want to do what we did in the championship game. We don't want to turn it over. We want to be consistent. We want to establish the running game. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we keep these guys off balance. And we know that because of that, it makes it interesting because we got two mobile quarterbacks going against each other.
Yeah.
And it's going to be exciting. But I tell you what, if our offensive line plays like they've been playing, I'm going to tell you what, we're going to be able to establish the running game early. And that's going to make it even better for Patrick Mahomes. And then at the same time, we need that defense to be stout like they were against Cincinnati. I want them to duplicate what they did in Cincinnati. If they run it back, if we can run it back, what we did in Cincinnati, with that Cincinnati game and Arrowhead, that championship game, I'm 100% sure that this team is going to be very productive. It's going to be hard to stop them. At the same time, if they don't do the opposite of what they did in that championship game, it's going to be I'm not going to say it's going to be a easy one. It's going to be a little bit tougher.
Yeah, and you're talking to two Cowboy fans, so we need you to give. We need you to get in there and get pumped up. We need the Chiefs to give them a beat down, because I don't want to hear about these Eagle fans.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Yes.
Well, I know that you can only spare a few minutes, so you can only get a segment. Kelly, do you have one last question before we?
I got time. Yeah. Hey, I got about 5 minutes.
All right, 5 minutes. Yeah, perfect. All right, I appreciate
got 5 minutes.
Perfect, Kelly. Kelly, I'll let you ask a question.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, on just real quick, on the other side of the ball, you're talking about we have another mobile quarterback. Well, just obviously we're not huge Philly fans, but I can respect what what Jalen Hurts has done in his second year. He had a lot of doubters coming into this, including myself. I didn't think he would be the guy that could do what he's done with this Philadelphia Eagles offense. Yeah. What do you accredit that to? Do you think it's just a leap that he's taken? Do you think it's the system around him, the players they put around him? What have you seen from Jalen Hurts that's kind of stood out to you this year?
Two things. The biggest thing is the organization, starting with the owner, and the head coach had confidence in him that he was the guy, and he made some mistakes earlier because being young and not really missing some things and things moving so fast, and having a coach that was saying, hey, I'm going to stay with this guy. I believe in you. And it did everything, because I look back and I rooted for this guy when he was at Alabama and what happened with him and Tua, and what Saban kind of said, okay, you want to leave, go. And he went to where did he go? He went to Oklahoma. Yeah. And what he did, I said, no, with this kid, he's going to do something special. And I just said he just needed an opportunity to prove himself. And if he can get you to believe, if I can get you to believe in what I'm doing by my play, not by what I'm talking, you know what? He's on his way. He's going to be one that we're going to be talking about him for, just like we're talking about Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and the kid from the Chargers.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to be talking. He's right up there with these guys.
Yeah.
So I believe that now he's got that confidence. He's got that swag, and now he believes. Who thought? He's probably going like, now, who thought now after how it started? It's like folks was giving up on me. I'm glad they did. But here I am now. Now they got my name on one of the guys that could actually be the MVP. How about that? No. So that right there, it kind of gives you some. It gives you a little something to say. You know what? I'm glad they didn't give up on me. I'm glad I didn't give up on me also, because it was all on me, because I could have quit because everybody said I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I tell you, it's tough that he's an Eagle, because I was a Jalen Hurts, still a fan of him. I think he's a great person.
Yeah.
I love the story in Alabama. I felt the same way with him, and then getting to Oklahoma. So Yeah, I wish he was on a different team, unfortunately. But you know how it is. Just like if he was a Raider, you'd have to feel the same way. So I just want to pick your brain because it seems like you're just in tune with the current game. And get one last question in. Of course, it's got to be about the Cowboys. Dak Prescott.
All right.
You're seeing all this stuff about him, and I think he gets a lot of criticism, maybe some deserved. But what's your thoughts on Dak Prescott as a quarterback?
You know what? The questions, my question, and I'm sure everybody's been talking about outside, and Jerry has to see it. It's consistency, and you don't. It's kind of like you don't know what you're gonna get. Yeah. It's kind of like, what are we going to get this week? Next week, we might get to the – and my wife was saying, we was talking about this, watching them play, and that was that game. They played very well.
In Tampa.
And we said, we never seen this Dak here. I mean, he was on fire. Then who is this Dak? And I said, the thing is, who's going to show up next week in San Francisco? Who shows up? It was Dak. I said, Dak must have stayed in Dallas or on the plane. I said, well, look, send somebody that looked like me put my jersey on. You know what I'm saying? And it's just that consistency thing that's the biggest question mark. It's been, can you know what? You know, you watch the good ones. You watch Mahomes put a streak together of 6-7 games. And you might have some little struggles in between, but he find a way to overcome it. But sometimes Dak can throw one interception, it can turn into 2 or 3, and then kind of everything falls apart. Yeah. And when that happens, I mean, it's pretty much written on the wall that, man, it's going to be one of them days. It's going to be one of those days where Dak's really not going to be the Dak that we saw last week. So it's a consistent thing, and I'm sure they got to address it and say, hey, you know, this is our guy. But what do we need to do to fix this thing? Can it be fixed, or what do? Do you bring somebody else in and say we need somebody else in to push him?
Yeah.
You know, so I that's how I would look at it. I mean, from my standpoint,
it's tough because to your point, I think, Kelly, you could probably attest. We watched a Cowboy game within the first 10, 15 minutes. We pretty much know what we're in for. And that's been the problem. Is that fixable? I mean, is that something like now you got McCarthy in there and you're changing coordinators, you're going to get him in a different system because he's shown the ability. Is that something that can be coached?
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to tell you this too. The coaches coach, players play. Coach gets us ready. But you know what? It's on us to get the reads right, to get everything, the timing and everything. So it's on us. I mean, I can't put it on the coach. His job is to coach and lay out the game plan. Our job is to execute the game plan. Yeah. And if we have problems and we can't execute the game plan, that's on us. Yeah. So I guess we can answer it that way and say it's on Dak to execute the game plan and to be specific about it. Hey, what I did last week, I can't come and do that next week because this game is bigger than last week. It can cost us, and that can stop us from getting where we want to get. Yeah. So, make a long story short, it's on the player.
He's got to get there, and
got to get there.
Kelly, you got one last question, then we'll.
You got one more, Kelly, because my wife is right here saying, "Come on."
Well, no, I guess the last thing I can get, obviously, I feel like you're a Chiefs guy. You're riding with your Chiefs. You got a score prediction for us here going into the Super Bowl. What do you think how you think is it to shake out?
You know what? I'm gonna go 20. I'm gonna go 27-23.
And of course,
27-23.
Of course,
Chiefs.
The Chiefs. Beautiful.
Chiefs. Wow. All right. Well, let's go Chiefs.
I'm hoping
man.
that happens.
Yeah, me too.
Hey, that's it. That means we gotta score. That means we gotta score a couple extra ones. That defense got to make that stand and just keep them out of the end zone.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for jumping on. I know you had to. You got so many things going on. I'd love to have you. I would love to have. I would love to have you on our show and just talk about your career because I think it's great. So I'll be in touch with you, and if there's a time that works during the summer, maybe we can definitely get together.
Absolutely. Let's do it. I'm open. Let's do it. Let me know when we can do it.
Okay. Perfect. I appreciate it, sir.
Perfect.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, guys. Go Chiefs.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
All right. Well, that was a good little treat, huh?
Good guy. Good interview, man. I like the knowledge. He had a lot of knowledge that he was dropping on us right there.
Right. Yeah. And he fits our show. He's got some energy.
He does. I like it.
Fit with us.
Yeah, bringing the energy to the Cowboys cave. That's what we like to see. I like what he said about, the players got to play. The coaches just get them ready. I couldn't agree with that more, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think, what we did, the route that we're going, I think it was time for a change with the whole Kellen Moore situation. But regardless of who the coach is, he's 100% correct when it comes to Dak. We have to see the consistency. That's where things got to change with Dak as a quarterback, is that consistent play week in and week out. But at the same time, I do think that we can do a better job of putting the pieces around him to make sure he can be consistent. But yeah, I mean, he made some really good points in that, and I like what he said about Dak as a quarterback, and I couldn't disagree with any of those points.
No, and I think that's been the concern, is the consistency. I mean, he couldn't have said it better, and I think anyone who's been there, we've seen Dak. That's why it's hard for me to really hammer him sometimes, because I've seen the best Dak, and the best Dak I would put up against any other defense and team in the league. But we've seen the bad Dak, and that's the Dak that we don't want to see. And I think that is the difference. And as much as we want to, I know we want to throw some shade, some hate on Jalen Hurts, and we want to throw, another. That's the difference you see with Jalen Hurts this year, is consistency. He hasn't had that string or these really bad games. He's been consistent. Now, maybe he doesn't throw for 300 yards, but he's running. He's protecting the ball, most important, right? Protecting the ball. Yep. And that's the key to everything. And that's where I'm hoping McCarthy, now he's got his stamp on it. He's going back to his kind of offense, get his guys. Yeah. It's on him. So I just think this is a good thing, right?
Yeah. Rein him in a little bit. I feel like, there was too many games where the game plan was really, put on Dak Prescott to, and here's the thing, throwing the ball for Dak, 35, 40 times a game. That's not the game plan for him, and it's funny because, I hear Cowboys fans and they sit there and they'll they smack talk Jalen Hurts and say, well, Jalen Hurts only had, 175 yards passing, but they won the game. They won the game. I don't give a shit if Dak presses for 75 yards and no touchdowns. If we win the game, it's a win. A win is a win. So make your quarterback efficient. Make it to where he's protected. Have him protect the ball. Ball security. And I mean, everything else will kind of fall into place. So throw all them stats out the window. I could care less.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And it's funny, Emmitt Smith was on on Radio Row, and they're talking about, we need to get on Radio Row. I think next year they got to get our show on Radio Row. I'm going to work on that. But he was on Radio Row, and he was being asked about Troy Aikman and how the lack of respect Troy Aikman gets, because you see it. And I'm not going to go being a boomer, so go ahead and call it out. But they'll throw that Tony Romo is better than Aikman and Dak is better than Aikman. Look how many yards he throws. And they asked Emmitt Smith, he goes, how many rings they got?
Yeah.
Troy Aikman's got 3, and Troy Aikman won. And to me, that's the most important thing of anything. I don't care if you throw for 200 yards, 500 yards, 100 yards. It's all about winning, and that's a separator. And right or wrong with quarterbacks, that's just the way you're going to be judged.
Yeah.
And you signed up for it when you decided to be a quarterback. You know what's coming with it. And I just think that people get caught up in the numbers, to your point. The Dak, and I don't want to say Dak apologies, because I'm a fan of him, and I know you're a fan of him too, but they'll go back to his numbers, 5,000 yards, 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns. But the inconsistency is the key, because you get him in that game against San Francisco, you find that, some of these games, and he looks like Tennessee. I mean, it's like, what quarterback is this? Isn't Dak Prescott?
Yeah. No, and, and the thing is that every great quarterback throughout history, every great quarterback is going to have bad games. You're going to have a couple games where it's just a complete stinker, whatever. The defensive game plan was good. You just had an off, whatever it may be. But, it just aggravates the living shit out of me when I see people comparing Dak to Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Like this one that came out that I was going back and forth.
Manning, I saw you get into heat. I was going to bring that one out.
Yeah, the Peyton Manning and Dak. I don't care that Dak had slightly better numbers, through the first 7 years they were showing it. And basically I think what the takeaway from it, the guy wanted to make the point is that, Dak Prescott and Peyton Manning, it's that through 7 years, their playoff record was the same, right? but they were not the same quarterback. I watched Peyton Manning. I watched him. And you know what? I may have been at the point and said, hey, you know what? The guy's not getting it done in the postseason. But when I watched Peyton Manning, I watched a cerebral assassin. I don't care that he had more interceptions than Dak Prescott. At that time, he had already had 2. He was on his second MVP. Dak Prescott ain't been the MVP of the league. I'm sorry. Like he's been good. He's had a really good season. I think last year was probably one of his better seasons statistic-wise passing. But he was no Peyton Manning. They were not in the same category, never been in the same category.
Peyton Manning's year was going this way. I mean, he threw 30-something. I think he led the NFL intercept like 30-something. I think he set a record. Yeah. So most of his interceptions came in the first couple of years.
Right, exactly.
But to your point, Peyton Manning, there was a time where during that time you questioned, could he win the big game? I mean, I think I talked about it Monday with them about, Steve Spurrier used to laugh at Tennessee. And I forgot what it was. You can't spell the Citrus Bowl without UT. That's what it was. Because he used to make fun of them because they'd always lose to Florida and end up in the Citrus Bowl. But there was that point. But you saw him going, him going up. The other one that we saw a comparison was Zeke and Terrell Davis. And, they didn't tell you it was like 40 games less, because Terrell Davis at back end of his career, he was injured. And I would argue if the Cowboys won a Super Bowl, Zeke is a Hall of Famer. I think his numbers are there. I think everything is there, but he needed something. He won a couple of rushing titles, NFL rushing. He needed that Super Bowl in a shortened career. Now he's still got some time left, so we'll see what happens. But that's what got Terrell Davis in the Hall of Fame. Those Super Bowls in Denver were won not because of John Elway. It was because of Terrell Davis. John Elway was at the back end of his career, and Terrell Davis was the missing piece for poor John Elway. All those Super Bowls where he carried him on his back, he finally got help. That's why he got in the Hall of Fame. So you can't look at numbers and numbers only because there's a story behind every one of them.
That's right. Exactly. And so, I tweeted out the graphic of the Terrell Davis and the Zeke thing. My whole point behind it was not necessarily when I was put my graphic out there was not necessarily that Zeke is as good as Terrell Davis, because Terrell Davis had some fantastic, over 2,000 yards rushing in a season. I mean, that's something that Ezekiel Elliott's never done. But it was just kind of more the fact that there's been so many people over the last couple of years that'll be like, cut Zeke, Zeke's trash, Zeke lost it, bench him and put Pollard in full time. And the point is that Zeke has been for this Dallas Cowboys organization a workhorse, and he's been an every down running back. Obviously we saw a lot more, split carries with Pollard in there, but he's been a workhorse for us, man. He put his body on the line, and I feel like, too many of these fans are quick to throw that out the window and forget about what he's done for this franchise. And it's just like, look, man, I get it. You may be unhappy with his contract, but like you had said, last week, he earned that money. He earned that money. So people need to quit pocket watching sometimes and just appreciate, what we had. Zeke did a lot for this franchise, put his body on the line. Whether he's going to be with us next year, who knows what will happen with that. But, he was a very solid running back for his 7 years that he's been with us so far. He's been a solid running back. I know the numbers have kind of tended to fall off every year, but you see that with every running back through the league. They have short shelf lives, and having that really high elite level where you're playing at the top of your game, it's just not sustainable for any running back anymore in this league.
No, the game has changed. It's, these guys are bigger and just more physical, but Zeke is never. The one thing you can say, you can't find me a game. If you have, go find it and send it to me, where he didn't give everything he's got on every play. I mean, he plays hard. He, maybe the body is just, the mind's there and the body's just banged up. I don't know. Is there a place for Zeke on the Cowboys? There is. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think he's a leader. I think he runs hard. I think he's a short yardage. I think he has a nose for the end zone. He's got good hands. There's a place for him. It just becomes a business. And that's the unfortunate part in football. It's a business. But like I said this before, and there's interviews, and you can go watch them. Go look at Earl Campbell and even Tony Dorsett, the sacrifices they've made in the NFL and their career and their tolls that their body is taken and what they're living with. Don't tell me these guys, he don't earn his money. You don't know they don't know what their life is like afterwards. I mean, so that's why I'll never get into the money thing with these guys. It's the same thing they talk about Dak's contract. I mean, he's like the 10th paid highest quarterback now. I mean, and then so well, look at his cap numbers. Like, look at his cap hit. Well, that's because they spread the money out and they move things around. I mean, the guy signed a contract. Move on. If you don't, if they don't think he's good enough, they'll move on. But like Michael Irvin said, it ain't that easy to get a quarterback. I know we all think that that you're going to get this. Purdy's going to come in and he's going to be a Cinderella story. That don't happen that often. No. And go back to the years in between Aikman and Romo, and go back and watch those. I lived them. I know you did.
Yeah,
that was hell. You want to talk about going to hell? Those years was about the bottom, as low as you can get as a Cowboy fan. You're talking about back-to-back 12-5 seasons, and I know people want to jump off the bridge over that. All I got to do is put back the tape of that year, and I'm like, hey man, this shit ain't that bad.
Right. Yeah. You wanna go into Cowboys purgatory or QB purgatory. Let's take it back to the early 2000s and after Aikman retired, because I'll tell you what, them are some quarterbacks that watching them play and make you want to vomit.
Yeah, but another thing, CD was he made his way down Radio Row, and he had a couple good interviews. I watched some clips of it, and the one thing he said is we need to get we need more playmakers on offense. We've got to get so even he's calling it, and then they'll say, well, Dak needs players around him in order to to be good. Well, shit, I think most quarterbacks do. I mean, if you're not Mahomes. Mahomes and Scales, there's very few quarterbacks in this league in history that don't need that. You need playmakers, and there's going to be some out there, so it's going to be interesting to see. Keenan Allen's a name that the Chargers might be cutting, and you're hearing that. I've always been a fan of his. I don't know. I think he's kind of like CD, so I don't know if he's fits. I think Dallas needs they need a big guy in the out, like a Michael Irvin type, Des Bryant type on the outside. Is really, I think, what the Cowboys need.
I have seen. I do know that I'm not a big I don't pump my chest as being a draft guy or a guy that's out here looking at draft tape. But I will say that this year's draft class for wide receivers is pretty stacked. Like and it seems like it's been that way for a few years now. The past few years, it's like the wide receiver group, and it's probably because the NFL has went along with, because first it was the college game and it's transitioned. It's a passing league, and the college football game has been a passing league. So you're seeing all these wide receivers come out, and it transitions well to the NFL. So I would say that I think that the Cowboys are going to have a great shot. Better than good shot to pick up, and hopefully they don't go the Jalen Tolbert route, and maybe there's still hope for him yet. I know you.
I was going to say, have you given up on him?
I'm not completely giving up on him yet, but if you draft a guy in the third round and he doesn't even really see the field, you got to look at that as a failure for now. Maybe he can transition into something, but if you're a Cowboys organization, you can't look at that and be happy with that pick as of right now, current state. But there's a lot of wide receivers out there, and I've seen some studs that I think the Dallas Cowboys could get, second, third round. There's gonna be some guys to be had.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I'm on the boat you're in. I'm no expert. Like I said, I'm very limited just in my little world I live in the South as far as watching football. So, but this is what we do on these channels, is we're going to bring in experts, and we got the Mel Kiper of this generation is going to be coming on the show, and he'll be dropping some knowledge. He's going to be giving us some of the Cowboys needs and some of the player breakdowns, and we'll have other guests coming in. So we're going to fill it in, and we'll educate everyone and educate ourselves, because he's got a couple sleepers, and one will be a very good story that I'm going to share about one of these receivers, but I don't want to. We're going to tease that for another day. So stepping away from the receivers, the other news that's kind of jumping around, let's find that, is Tony Pollard, franchise. Do we franchise him? Do we sign him to a long-term deal? Franchise tags about $10 million. Is it a disrespect to franchise him because he's coming off an injury? And you just what's your thoughts on that whole scenario with Tony Pollard, and how do you think that's going to shake out?
I saw a couple articles about it, and the articles that I saw, talking about his salary and what the Cowboys could probably sign him for, was something in the range of about a three-year, $27 million deal, which would average about $9 million a year. I think that would be the smart move. I think right now, I don't know that I would franchise him. I think I might save that. I might save that. If the Cowboys are smart, I think they've got enough money where they could work deals on their major guys. I think they could work a deal out for Steele. I think they can work a deal for Pollard. I don't think they would have to franchise anybody this year. I think they should save that money, and go ahead and get Pollard on a deal. Like I said, it'd still be a short-term deal. The one thing that I want the Cowboys to avoid making a mistake is investing too much money back into a running back, because I believe that we have other areas of need. I believe that we can address the running back position in the draft as well. Now, I want Pollard back on the team, don't get me wrong, but I think the Cowboys would be better suited to work out a deal for him that's going to keep him on the team for the foreseeable future versus franchise tagging him, just because that'd be kind of a heavy cap hit. You still got some things you got to work out with Zeke to see if you're keeping him, restructuring his deal. So in my opinion, I think they try to work out a deal for him. And let's hit the draft and pick up another running back, maybe even two running backs in the draft. So see what we can do there.
And then just jumping back to Dak, so there's in the news again is giving Dak an extension, and a lot of people hear that and they're like, oh my God, they're gonna. And again, the salary cap is just a shell game.
It is
credit card. It's a moving money around. And they can what they bank on, and what's is obviously happens, and you can just keep seeing is the cap is just going to keep accelerating at a high rate.
Right.
So you look at Dak, he's 30 years old, right? He's 30. Is Dak 30?
I believe so, yeah.
He's around 30, let's just say. Quarterbacks are playing to 35, 37, that some even longer in their 40s. That was Brady was 45. So you bank on him. He's not a big runner, so injuries, So the thing is, I guess what I'm saying is they could spread that money out and really create a lot more space to where you've got Parsons, you got CD, you got Diggs, you got Pollard, you got these guys that you need to sign, and by the way, hopefully bring in maybe some key free agents. What's your thoughts about? I mean, do you have heartburn over them if they extend Dak Prescott?
I don't, because I think it's one of those deals where they can relieve cap money now. And like you said, it's a shell game. So what they do is they backload these contracts. They'll have a contract backloaded. They'll give him his guaranteed money. The back end of the contract is typically voidable years. They have stuff in there like that. So, I mean, I think that they could do a deal right now where they probably, they give Dak a 5-year deal with the last 2 years being, so where it's basically, you're looking at it being like a 3-year deal. So Dak, I think, in my opinion, is going to have a window where he's going to really have to and honestly, this next year or two for me, and I think for the organization, is going to be Dak Prescott's kind of prove it years. Is, can you get this team over the hump? Because I feel like right now, they're looking at it. We're going to put some talent around Dak. We're going to give you a new offensive coordinator. We're doing things to try to make this offense work for you and put this in a more workable situation. Even though I did hear today that Dak Prescott actually was upset about Kellen Moore not being the offensive coordinator. Asked on his opinions of that, he was a little upset. Now, I don't know if that's because of the relationship they had or whether he thinks that Kellen Moore was the guy that that should be there in-house. Either way, it's set up, I think, now for Dak to succeed here in the next couple of years. And if you can't get it done, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Cowboys. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see them draft a quarterback this year. Maybe in the first 5 rounds of the draft, 4 rounds, if a guy falls to them. I heard they were, thinking about getting a guy last year in round 3. So drafting a quarterback's not out of the realm of possibility right now. So
there was a guy, I don't know who it was. I think I might have mentioned, I don't know what show I mentioned it on, but I mean, he said draft a quarterback every year. I draft a quarterback every year. Maybe it was John Madden. Maybe it was just somebody years ago used to just say that is you just don't know when you're going to strike. And you always got a guy in the hopper. So that, if you get him in the mid rounds, it's not a huge investment. It's not that, but you get these guys in and you just don't know what you're going to get. And I think one of the nice things with McCarthy's offense and running that West Coast offense, it's a system. And you saw in Green Bay, he had success, when some quarterbacks went down. I know for a fact that the Cowboys got Matt Flynn $25 million from Seattle after the beating he put on us when we thought we were going to cakewalk that game, and he lit us up.
Yeah.
The offense has been proven that it's a good system. So I think it's set up for Dak to do well. I think the pressure's on him. I think the fans, even fans like yourself and me, usually we're not as critical of Dak. I think the patience is wearing thin. We got to get something rolling. I mean, it's been a while. We got to we need to see that consistency, like Stephone Paige said, and I mean, you couldn't say it better. Is we've got to see that, and so it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. A little disappointed if he did say that, if he came that he was upset about more, not being there. He should be accepting of what he's got now and say, hey, we had a good run. We got, things happen, but I'm looking forward to getting to work. So I don't know a full clip of it, but
I don't either. That's what I was gonna say. It could be one of those, clickbait headlines. I'm not exactly sure. I just saw a deal where it said Dak Prescott, was upset that Kellen Moore left. I didn't go into it and actually read the whole article, so I don't really know the context. I'm hoping it's not, that's not the case either, because I mean, obviously that kind of be throwing some shade at our new, OC Schottenheimer. So I think he'd give him a shot before he started, throwing shade and being upset about Kellen Moore leaving. So, but
that would be better. And the funny thing was, a few days ago, I tweeted, I was at lunch and I tweeted Super Bowl week, right? It was Monday, or it might've been Tuesday. And I think it was Tuesday. And lo and behold, on ESPN, they're talking about Dak Prescott and a contract extension. So I just took a picture of it and I tweeted it, and it got a lot of response. And the funny thing was, Eagle fans got offended. Why would you get offended? They're saying that we're sore losers or something. Like, all I was saying is I'm trying to have some lunch. It's Super Bowl week. You think that ESPN and these guys would be talking about the Eagles and the Chiefs, but yet they still are talking about the Cowboys. That was the point of it. Is it's what I say about with Dak, and I know he gets a lot of hate, and I know a lot of people hate it. He's not as bad as he's perceived. But what happened, in my opinion, what happens is, it's just like if you listen to Fox News or CNN or MSNBC, they repeat the same things over and over. That's why I don't watch any political stuff. Because if you listen to it long enough, you're going to believe everything that they say because it's been said to you for 8 hours. And I think the same thing has happened with Dak. Is every channel is just constantly telling you how much he sucks and how this and that you start to go, look, well, shit, man, he sucks. What is this shit? And I think if you look at his whole body, look at the whole body of work, forget, don't isolate it to this year. Look at the whole body of work. He's never been a big turnover guy.
No.
Inconsistency in games has been an issue here and there. But I wouldn't say he's like bottom half of the league at quarterback. I mean, they make him seem like he's at the lowest level. And what intrigues me about it is Josh Allen seems to get a pass. We haven't heard much about his playoff failure. Wasn't that, right? Didn't they have that game and he threw 2 picks in the end zone in the red zone for him? And he's had as many interceptions as Dak, and he's had 6 games with multiple interceptions, more than any other quarterback. But yet him and the Bills seem to get a pass, but the Cowboys and Dak just don't seem to get that.
Yeah, no, I've seen the same thing, and I've actually only heard one show. There was one show that I was listening to. I think it was Carlisle and Canty. I think it is. It's on the afternoon.
Oh, Chris Canty.
So I heard that one, and they were giving Josh Allen some deserved deserved smoke and criticism, because they were saying, hey, if Dak's getting all this heat for interceptions and not being able to come through in the big moments, let's throw some of this here Josh Allen's way, because he hasn't exactly come through either. So yeah, I mean, the turnovers is not an issue that I'm really very worried about with Dak, because overall he hasn't been. This whole misconception that he's a turnover prone quarterback is just not true. This year was. But, as we alluded to and pointed out many times, there was a lot of his games where he threw interceptions that weren't necessarily his fault, whether it be a wrong route run by a wide receiver, whether it be a ball tipped off, a receiver's hands. I mean, people will sit there and say that's an excuse. So it's not an excuse. It's just a fact. And it happens. Some of it, some things are luck when you go into a football game, but, it just had some unfortunate things that kind of bounced his way. I have no question that, Dak's going to work hard this offseason. And I think that we'll see hopefully we see a renewed sense of, a passion and dedication to coming back next year and being better at quarterback. Because, I mean, as much as I've been critical of Dak, I want to be proven wrong when it comes to Dak Prescott.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so, absolutely. The funny thing is, you mentioned that Canty show. So I was on Facebook or on Twitter, and one of the former quarterbacks of my beloved Miami Hurricanes, his name was Malik Rozier, and he was there with Mark Richt, and he had made a comment about Dak, because someone said, who's Mark? He said, who's Chris Canty? He laughed. He said, Dak, could they win with Dak? And he said, who's Chris Canty? He made a laughing emoji. And so I sent him a message and I invited him. I said, man, I'd love you to, I'm a Hurricanes fan, but I'd love you to come on the show. And I'd love to just have a conversation on Thursday night on our Cowboys show I'd love to get your opinion on Dak. And he hadn't responded yet, but I would love to get, he was a quarterback. Now he's not a quarterback at Dak's level, but he was a quarterback. He knows the game. He's actually does a lot of QB shows. And so obviously he's a student of the game. And I would love to get his opinion on it, bring him on the show. And so I'm still working on that. So Malik Rozier, if you're hearing it, you're welcome to come in the cave and talk to Kelly Canine and I, and it'd be a good conversation. It's not I'm not going to berate anybody. I'm always good. I'm always up for good debate and understanding of what he's seeing with Dak. And is it fixable? Is it something that's corrected? Is it the way the scheme is? Players around him? I mean, there's so many variables. The quarterback touches the ball every play.
Right.
So it'd be interesting to get him on. So hopefully maybe he'll come into the cave.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, I digress into one last thing I wanted to get your opinion on, and it's with our boys Jerry, and I love these pictures. Jerry and Steven, they're making the faces, so I just put this on because I like it. But Jerry made the comment about Philly. Philly went all in, and he said he'd rather do it the way that they're doing it long term, that kind of way. And I want to say it was Jimmy Johnson, basically I think Jimmy Johnson in the comment probably sealed his fate that he's not going to be in the Ring of Honor anytime soon, but he laughed at it and basically just shot it down as idiotic to make that kind of statement. So, I mean, do you think that the Cowboys are seeing this, and do you see them being a little bit more active in free agency? And I don't really need a huge name or something like that, but you see a problem, right? Where's our problem? Receivers. It seems to be the problem, right?
Yeah.
And we made a mistake with Cooper. It turned out not to work out for us. Do you think he's going to be all in to kind of address this and like, hey guys, let's, we got to do something. That win now mentality isn't so bad.
Yeah, I think so. Jerry will say whatever he can say to try to make him paint himself in a little bit better light. It's funny. I'm sitting there, I'm looking at these two pictures, and they're both making the same facial expression. It's a frown. That's how I felt after watching the playoff game, Jerry.
That's why I love it.
That's how I felt after watching the playoff game, Jerry and Steven. I had that same look on my face. No, it's Jerry loves to, there's that phrase he could sell ketchup popsicles to a woman in white gloves. Well, you know what? I'm not buying no more ketchup popsicles, Jerry. I'm not doing it. That's exactly what he's doing. He's blowing smoke. And there's no way they can sit there with a straight face and tell you that with what the Eagles did this last offseason, with what the Rams did the season before, that you cannot look at somebody with a straight face and tell me that if you're a team that's close, and you believe you're close, and you have faith in that team, you have conviction in that you can't go out and start pulling the trigger on some of these bigger deals that you can get. Because like we've talked about it before. When the Eagles earlier this season struggling against the run, what do they do? They brought in Lindell Joseph. What do? They brought in Ndamukong Suh. And, it's one of those things where it's like they already had a good team, but they weren't content with it. They wanted to go all in. They wanted to win this year. So, and then, now they're in a position to do it. Whether they do it or not, we'll see. But still, they're there.
Yeah.
they're there. We're not. 1 + 1 it's 2, man.
They've got to do something at receiver. They do,
Absolutely.
and I don't mean if some stud falls to them in the first round or something like that, fine. But they need impact, and they've been. I don't want to say lucky. That's probably not a fair word. They've been very good with their drafts. I mean, they've gotten impact from these guys.
Yeah.
You can't. The one thing we can't do is knock their draft over the
Right.
past 5 years or whatever it's been. They've hit some nice doubles and triples and some home runs, and they've only had a couple strikeouts, but there's a win now team. We're not that far away. I don't want to hear people say, "Oh, the Cowboys." Man, this team dropped 40 on the defense that's in there. They beat Cincinnati, who was in the championship game with our backup quarterback. We're really a bad quarterback play away from San Francisco, that could be fixed. So this team isn't far away. We need like CeeDee Lamb said, we need some playmakers on offense. Just we need one more maybe. If Pollard's back full strength and you got CD and you get another one, that's what we need. So they've got to do something, and they got to pull the trigger on something, because the patience is wearing thin in Cowboys Nation, and we need to see results. So they better do something. But one quick thing, because Winston was asking it, and I wanted your opinion, is Tyron Smith. What's your thoughts on bringing him back?
I won't mind bringing Tyron Smith back. I don't think he's playing left tackle anymore. I think that job belongs to Tyler Smith. I think he earned it. And I think I think Tyler Smith's playing that. So I think maybe, if Tyron Smith is coming back, maybe he's playing on that right side. Didn't do too bad playing on the right side this year when he had to step in. But he's one of those guys that you have to have a plan in place for him, though. If you're bringing him back, you have to understand he's not playing 17 games. He's just not. Hasn't done it for I think it's about 4 years now that he hasn't played full 17 games. So you can't go into there with a plan that he's going to be your guy, whatever position you plug him in, whether you're putting him at, I don't think he's going to play guard, but if you were to put him at guard, whether you got him at right tackle, you just got to understand he's not going to be there for 17 games. So you can't plan on him as being your full-time starter. But if he's a guy that wants to come back, absolutely. I think he's a solid. And, these guys can learn a lot from him. Hell of a player. But I wouldn't mind to see him back on the team. But obviously, it's got to be with the understanding that he's probably not going to be a guy that's going to be there for you all 17 games. So
yeah, I would bring him back. His cap number for what he is when he plays is his cap number is very friendly, even if he's only playing 8 games. I mean,
Right.
His cap number is nice, and he's a veteran guy, and I think the mentoring that he can do with obviously Steele, still a young guy, but obviously Tyler Smith, I think that makes it worth it to me. And whether he's your swing guy, whether you do put him at left tackle, and maybe you put Tyler at guard, I mean, they'll have to figure all that kind of stuff out. I mean, right. I'm a fan of get your best 5 out there, but to your point is he's not playing a full season. So we were actually very fortunate that he got hurt in the first part, because it put Tyler in there, and we saw what he could do, and then we got Tyron back, and then we lose another guy. So we got very lucky with our offensive line that we're able to shovel people around. I saw 27 years. So Kendrick, 27 years, we're long overdue. You're damn right. And that is that's the other thing is, so the joke about the NFL being choreographed or scripted or this and that. Man, damn well if the NFL was, they wouldn't be making Cowboys wait this long, unless it's great for ratings and TV. But it's been a hell of a long time, and it's got to come to an end sooner or later. It's like I was talking to Charlie Waters when we interviewed him. You just got spoiled with how good the Cowboys were in the 7. They went to the Super Bowl 5 out of 10 years, never had a losing season for 22 years, under Tom Landry. And even we had 85, they made the last playoffs. So 85 to 89, they sucked. By 90, we were good. It just, you could see the promise. So 90 to 98. And then you just had that. It's been from 96, but really 98 is when the wheels fell off of the triplets and everything. So you go from there to here, and it's like you haven't seen a championship game. You haven't seen nothing. It is the longest drought in organization history, and it's got to end soon.
Yeah, you'd hope so. You'd hope so. And I mean, yeah, I to echo that sentiment about the NFL being, being rigged. If it was rigged, the Cowboys would be in the Super Bowl, every third or fourth year, just because, I mean, what it would do for the NFL and their ratings. I mean, they're all about ratings and stuff like this. And while I do think that, there will be plenty of people that tune into the Super Bowl for this game. You could probably double that audience if it was the Cowboys and anybody else. If it's the Cowboys and the Chiefs or Cowboys and Bengals. I mean, if the Cowboys are playing in the Super Bowl, man, the ratings they're just going to be better than what any other team. It's just it's not, a biased opinion. It's a fact. It's what happens every time we're in the playoffs. They're like, this is the most watched game. Every year when they post a graphic of the 5 most watched games, the Cowboys are usually 3 of the top 5 every year. Every year. So, it's one of those things where, you either love us or you hate us, but no matter what, you're tuned in and you're watching. So,
yeah. And I was looking, I got distracted because they were talking about, I was watching the NFL honors. So good news, and call me a hater or whatever, but that idiot Philadelphia coach didn't win Coach of the Year, went to the Buffalo Bills, or no, the New York Giants coach. Sorry, the former Bills coordinator.
And rightfully so, man. I mean, that guy, I mean, as much as I don't like the Giants, first of all, he's not an overconfident, cocky douchebag like the dude from Philly is, because I just can't stand that guy. I mean, he's just, I can't stand him. But I think that, Dayball, I think he did a great job with what he had on that team. It's amazing to me that they made the playoffs. Amazing to me that they made the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, that's just So he deserved it, and I'm glad it wasn't the guy from Philly. I hope that guy's crying. I hope he's crying on Sunday. I've heard a lot of people, and they're like, I hope it's a good. I don't. I hope it's a 55-10 just beat down. I hope they get embarrassed out there. I hope I'm
with you, man.
Off the field.
That would be a great game for me, and I do not want to hear it. And I just, if God forbid Philly wins, we're gonna go on a vacation. Where I'm gonna hide. I'm not gonna be off Twitter. I'm gonna be off this shit for a few weeks because I don't want to hear it.
No, me neither. And and it's for me, it's going to be one of those things that if Philadelphia manages to for some reason they're to win it, they're going to be able to say they did it against one of the greatest quarterbacks that's out there right now, Patrick Mahomes, all this other, and there won't be really anything that I can say to that.
No.
I'm just gonna have to live with that. And anytime you get in an argument with the Eagles fan, they're gonna say, well, our quarterback won a Super Bowl in his second year as a starter. Dak's in year 8. He's going into year 8 now and still hasn't got past the second round of the playoffs. And there won't be a damn thing I can say about it because it's facts. So you can't argue with facts. But
it definitely would suck, and I hope it doesn't work. I hope they're 1-3 in Super Bowls after Sunday. Hopefully, it's a beatdown. So. I haven't been. I don't know. The whole Super Bowl week, I haven't been as crazy. I did see, what happened with Michael Irvin. Obviously, we don't know a ton about it, but I guess he got booted off NFL Network. I don't know if it's permanently or for the Super Bowl show. But long story short. I guess he's because I heard him. He was on 105.3. He went out to dinner with a former teammate, might have been a college teammate. He said he came back to the hotel. He said he doesn't even remember who he was talking to, but he had a 45-second conversation with someone in the lobby and went back up to his room, and that was it. And then he got a call the next day saying there was a videotape, and the girl had said that there was sexual harassment or whatever it was, and that they booted him off. And you haven't seen the tape. You have no charges have been filed, and it just makes you wonder. And I know everything is serious, but I mean, did they, is that like knee jerk? Is it? I mean, you boot him off. I mean, you don't know if anything's proven.
Yeah.
You don't know what it is. I mean, she obviously didn't go up to his room. Everything was shown. It was a conversation.
Yeah.
But you had any thoughts, or do you see much about it?
No, so I saw something today, and I was a little confused because I don't know. So I saw a deal, and it was, and I mean, this thing had some traction on it because there was, I don't remember it. I mean, it had like over 100,000, I think, likes on this tweet. It was a video from some guys that actually said that they saw the conversation, and these guys actually had it recorded on a cell phone. So you can't really make out what's saying, but yeah. So they said that they offered, because I guess maybe there's a bar in this hotel or something, and Michael Irvin went, but I guess when he was going, I don't know. They said they offered him to buy a drink. He said he was drinking club soda because he had to work the next morning, but he was on his way through there, I guess. And there was two ladies actually, and he was talking to one of the ladies, and I don't know if that's the one or if that's maybe where he was at, where he was drinking before he went. I don't know, but he was talking to these two ladies, and one of them, he said something, and I heard, I'm saying the F word or something, but you couldn't really make it out. But they just basically, these guys were saying, look, this is a false accusation. He didn't say anything bad. We were there. We went, and this and that. So they were, and said that false accusations should not be treated lightly. So now, I like I said, I haven't had a full chance to delve into it, read the comments to see what that actually. But my personal opinion is this thing: like, if a guy, Michael Irvin, single guy, he's out, he's drinking. Even if he made a comment to a woman, maybe he tried to hit on her and she took it the wrong way or whatever, it's a 45-second conversation. He didn't continually harass this woman. He didn't put his hands on her. Went to the elevator. 45 seconds. You can't tell me that in a 45-second conversation that a guy can do some emotional or physical, damage to somebody. So I take that as just somebody that maybe they didn't like him. Maybe he said something that rubbed him the wrong way, and they wanted shit. And nowadays, hell, who knows? It could have been her saying, hey, let me come up to your room. And he's like, nah, I'm not, not doing. And then, she decided, what, I'm going to say that he said something to me. And you never know. And I think it's knee jerk. I think it's absolutely knee jerk because, we've gotten to this point in our society, and not to go too far into this, but it's guilty until proven innocent. That's not the way that it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. So I don't think he should have been pulled from the show. I think it's wrong for, the NFL Network to have done that and to reacted so quickly. But it's the society we're in nowadays. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the way that it is. And now people levy punishment before actually investigating incidents. And that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah. And the trouble is, I don't know what it is. So I don't want to, we don't want to take any sides of it, but we can only comment on what's on the surface. Right. And the trouble is, if it ends up being false, this happened to him once before. At NFL Network, end up being a false thing and this and that. And, Michael Irvin's he's been very open about his past and the trouble that he had, with the Cowboys and some of the things that he did. And it seems like he's been a model citizen for, since his playing days, and he's great on TV, and he's a likable guy. And I've never seen him not smiling and taking a picture with someone or interacting with a fan or whatever it is. He just seems like he's enjoying life. And so you potentially are ruining a man's career and really ruining his reputation because, like, Winston pointed out, Irvin in trouble and he's laughing because that's a comment anyone would say. Oh, Michael Irvin, because that's the perception that's been given to him. And now he's earned that, right? Unfortunately. But if this ends up being false, you're destroying, you destroy his credibility and his career and potentially all of that. You don't know what's going to happen next. For Cowboy fans, he's our pregame, until they get me up on there, he's our pregame hype guy before the game. I love Michael Irvin. He gets you going. Yeah. Do they take him down from that? If this is, if this goes somewhere, there's just so many things that can end up happening on an accusation that you just, I don't know. It's unfortunate. I hope it ends up being false because I'm a Michael Irvin fan. You just like you are. You got him tattooed on your arm, so you got to love Michael Irvin. You hate to see that. You hope it's not true, but something you don't want to see at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's not. And again, not like you said, not taking any sides, trying to side with anybody, but I just, it just makes me scratch my head. A 45-second interaction. How much could have been said? You know what I mean? It just really doesn't, I don't know, doesn't really stack up there. And I just feel like, like I said, they're everybody is always just overly cautious about this stuff now when it comes to sexual harassment stuff, and I'm fine with that. I understand it. I get where we're at. Like I said, as a society now, but it's just sad that we've come to that point now that somebody can say something about anybody, and then it's on you to prove them wrong and to defend yourself versus, hey, let's see if this accusation is true first before we start pulling the trigger on disciplinary actions. Because, if it turns out not to be true and you basically took away, Irvin's, I'm sure he was excited about it. I mean, he talked about how he was disappointed, and he's a little flabbergasted, by this whole thing, and he's like, hey, look, I don't really know what's going on here. I don't remember. Said I had a few drinks. I don't remember what what was said. I don't think it was anything that offended anybody, but I don't know. Just sad to see, man. I hope nothing's bad.
He called up the show like that 105.3.
Yeah.
They
didn't even know about it.
The interview, and he called him he called him from a hotel. He said he was, they got him in hiding or whatever. And it's sad, but I mean, hopefully, I hope it's not true. I mean, being a Cowboy fan and being a Michael Irvin fan, but it's kind of sad if it's not true because of what really, he was one of the main reasons I was going to watch these pregame shows, because I just love watching Michael Irvin on the pregame. There's really not much more for me to watch now. So
same here. I love watching Irvin, man, and he's he provides the hype for Cowboys Nation, and him and you both, the two hype men. But I mean, I love me some Michael Irvin, man. I mean, he's just he seems like a good guy. And, you just hate to have somebody's reputation sullied by something like that. So hopefully it all comes out in the wash, and it's,
Yeah. Well, speaking of hype, I'm still waiting on the clips. So I'm still working on the clips for you so we can tie you into the intro.
I got some stuff I'm going to send your way, man. I got some stuff.
And I can edit it down and all that. Just send some stuff, and I want to definitely tie it in. And I enjoy doing it. And so some people say, man, you get a professional to do that? I was like, no, man, I just messing around. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I just throw some stuff on there and see if it works out. But no, it was a great show. I know it's Super Bowl week. I know it's end of the season. A lot of people are down. A lot of people are kind of resting to recharge. So we'll be doing that a little bit too. They'll be doing a little bit of that too. So we may take a slight little pause here and there, but then, after the Super Bowl, but then ramp back up and get this draft thing going. Like I said, we're going to have some draft content. We've got some guests. We've got some Cowboy guys that are in the pipeline. We don't ever want to jinx anything, but it seems like before the season, we might be represented by some of the team of the 90s. We got a couple good ones that have committed verbally, and hopefully we'll get that. But I think the next one on deck, if it works out, he said he wanted to do it, was Craig Morton. He would be interesting because he was a quarterback with Roger Staubach when Tom Landry used to flip-flop him around, and they finally made a decision. Good for us. That it was Roger Staubach, but he had a great career, and we ended up facing him in the Super Bowl. So it'd be really good to hear that story, how kind of it didn't work out well for him. Again, good for us in a way, but it'd be good to hear his story. So hopefully we'll get him on and on one of these shows and hear I love hearing old Cowboy stories. I can never get tired of it.
Yeah, me neither. Anytime you get a fellow Cowboy, former Cowboy, it's always good to hear those stories.
Yeah, so we're gonna keep it going. Until then, I've got nothing else to say. Kelly, what about you? You good?
No, man, just go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs. We had Stephone Paige. If you got on late, make sure that you go back and check it. We got to get him on the show again. I think aside from his career, I think he just has a lot of insight and a lot of knowledge on the game. It'd be really good to get his opinion on some of these players today, some of the past, some of the comparisons. So I know we can only get him on for about 15 minutes, but I definitely think we need to get him back on and dedicate a show with him there, because I thought he was a lot of fun.
For sure, man. I thought he brought some good energy, so I like that.
Yeah. So we're gonna keep it going. We're gonna keep it moving. You guys have a great weekend. It'll be a beautiful weekend with the Chiefs winning and hurting our Philly fans, because you know who's waiting to tweet something out if it does. You got a couple guys right here, and I know there's some more just waiting to use some words against some of these Eagle guys that have been running their mouths all year, because all that matters to them is winning the Super Bowl. They tell us that all the time. So they better keep that same energy if they're on the other side of it. So We
Yeah.
will we will see you guys next week for a little post Super Bowl show, and we'll take it from there. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Peace out. See you.